All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're tackling a massive question. You know that feeling deep down, that need to be you, to be unique? Well, where does that actually come from? What if I told you that very desire wasn't just born, but was carefully built over thousands of years?
I mean, really think about that for a second. Our whole world, it seems, is screaming at us to find your authentic self, to stand out, to not be just another face in the crowd. It feels like the most personal, most natural mission we could have. But is it really?
Okay, so let's start digging into this. This whole obsession with expressing ourselves is literally everywhere. And it's gotten completely tangled up with what we buy and how we present ourselves to the world.
It's like we've all been taught that our identity is something you assemble, like a collage, from all your consumer choices. The phone you use, the clothes you wear, that specific brand of coffee you drink. They're not just things, right? They're little billboards that say, "This is who I am." But this pressure to be different, it's no accident. It's the product of some really powerful, deep-seated cultural forces. And this is where it starts to get really wild. What if this core drive, this thing that feels so personal, the need to be a unique me, was actually planted in our culture centuries and centuries ago for reasons that had absolutely nothing to do with you finding your true self? To start to unravel this mystery, we first have to look at the system that runs on individualism today, modern capitalism, because it didn't just change how we work, it fundamentally changed how we see ourselves.
I mean, the difference is just night and day. For most of human history, your identity was all about the group. Your extended family, your clan, your village. Who you were was defined by your relationships to other people. Then capitalism comes along and completely flips the script. Suddenly, the focus shrinks, first to the nuclear family, and then finally, all the way down to the self-reliant individual.
And this wasn't just a philosophical shift, it was a practical one. Think about it. Work used to happen at or around the home. But with the rise of factories in places like early industrial England, mom and dad had to leave all day. That meant kids had to learn to fend for themselves, to become independent much, much younger. And right there, that's where you see the very first seeds of our modern, rugged individualism being planted. So, okay, capitalism definitely poured gasoline on the fire, no doubt about it. It supercharged individualism. But it didn't start the fire. The very concept of a person as this separate, distinct unit, well, that has much deeper and, honestly, much more surprising roots. To find them, we have to go back even further. Yeah, we have to go way back to a time when the single most powerful force shaping society wasn't economics, but religion. The actual groundwork for you and me, the modern individuals, was laid by Christian theology, which, piece by piece, took apart the old world of kinship and community.
Now, this didn't happen overnight. It was a long, slow burn process. For ages, societies were built on complex kinship rules, clans, tribes. But Christianity began to chip away at that. It started by enforcing new, stricter rules about marriage. Then it actively worked to weaken family ties. And the final step? The Reformation, which hammered home the idea of a direct, personal relationship with God. Suddenly, your salvation wasn't a group project. It was on you.
And I mean, this wasn't subtle. Just listen to what this quote is saying. It is a direct instruction to put your new identity as a believer above your old one as a son or a brother or a father. The new community of faith was specifically designed to replace the old community of blood. And this had real-world consequences. The church created all these rules, like forbidding marriage even to very distant cousins. Socially, that was a bombshell. It meant you couldn't just marry the girl or guy next door anymore. You had to go find partners outside your community, which physically broke up those tight-knit clans and re-wove society into a new fabric made of individual believers. Okay, so now you've got this new concept. The individual is the basic building block of society. The next logical step is you have to define its borders. You have to build walls around it. And this process created some of the most fundamental ideas that we just take for granted in our world today. The clue is right there in the word itself, individual. It comes from the Latin for indivisible, something that can't be broken down any further. A sealed-off, self-contained unit. That was a totally radical way of thinking about what a person even is. So if you are a self-contained unit, you need a social wall around you, don't you?
And that's exactly what privacy is. It's the invention of a personal space, your thoughts, your feelings, even your home, that other people can't just barge into. This whole concept, it barely existed in those old communal societies. And that wall doesn't just stop at the social level, it becomes physical. The idea of my stuff, totally separate from our stuff, is the next logical piece of the puzzle. Private property becomes the material expression of this new individual self. All right, so we've been on a huge historical trip, from ancient religion all the way up through the rise of capitalism. So what? Let's bring it all back home and see how this long, winding history is shaping the way you live and think right now, today. I mean, our entire world is built on choice. What to stream tonight, what to eat for lunch, what career path to follow. Every single decision we make, from the tiny to the life-altering, reinforces this one core message. I am in charge, I am the sole author of my life story. And you can see this everywhere in what's basically a new gospel of self-optimization. We've taken that old religious idea of mastering the self and secularized it. We're counting our calories, tracking our workouts, hacking our productivity, constantly upskilling, and carefully curating our personal brand online. It's all about perfecting the individual.
And the end result of all of this? We've each become the CEO of Me Incorporated. That pressure to be authentic and unique has morphed into a new pressure. To be a well-managed, successful, optimized project in a world that sees every single one of us as individual competitors.
Which brings us to one last and pretty provocative question. If the very lens through which we see ourselves as unique individuals defined by our choices wasn't something we discovered, but something that was constructed for us over centuries by powerful religious and economic systems, then how free are our choices really? Now that is something to think about.